I had never done a documentary before. I'm a journalist, I'm a reporter. Started out one-man banding, almost going back to my roots. It was worth it because I felt like this story of these foster kids, these kids in foster care and all the adults who kind of work with them, so much needed to be told. I basically just started going around talking to anyone I could about the child welfare system. And I wanted to show the story of these children and these adults who have basically been silenced. I have been telling people's stories for the past 13 years. When I got into the world of foster care a few years ago and I dove deep, I could not help but think there is a huge story to tell here. And the first group of people that I wanted to show were these adults who grew up in foster care their whole life. They aged out and they went down different paths and they went through different things, you know, becoming adults without guidance. And I felt like that was really important to show.
I was with my mother, and I guess this was one of the times that she was passed out and drunk or, you know, addicted. And I'm walking down this gravel road, and I realized that I'm all alone.
The streets is like hard to really like survive on. And I think like at that point in time, I was just so low, like I had like no direction. And you get to the point like nobody cares.
We were taken away when I was 6. We kind of bounced around. I was a bit rebellious and I had a smart mouth.
When I got to school and the kids were all talking about their families or something else was going on, I could talk about my family, but not in the scope of mom and dad. Then when the physical abuse happened and the mental abuse happened, that's when I knew something wasn't right, but we had to endure it because we wanted to be together. We didn't want to be separated. I grew up in foster care since I was an infant. I have over 20 years of being in state's care. The foster parents that were in my life had taught me lessons along the way, which is really interesting, and I've learned from my initial families as well. And I remember one story of the farm family that was in Hancock County. I'd been living in for about 2 or 3 years, and of course I was, you know, it was an all predominantly white neighborhood farm. You hold 10 yards, cows and everything. And so we're in the truck and we're working on the farm, and he's kind of driving, the foster dad is kind of driving the truck, and just stops and looks at me. He goes, "One day, Nick, someone's gonna call you out of your name," which is a racial slur. And he goes, "Whatever you do," I remember this conversation, "whatever you do, if you fight or you walk away, I support anything you do." I wanted to be back with my mom with this, because that's why all the other kids were. All the other kids had their mom, had their dad, and I saw the people on TV had their parents too. I wanted to be normal, but then I knew that wasn't me. Coming to the realization that it might not happen is something devastating for a kid. And she said, you know, can I talk to you? And I said, they said, yes, Mom, you can talk to me. And she said, hey, I just wanted to tell you that I'm sorry. And I'm sorry, and even though all these things have happened and the things that we've been through, that I'm still your mother. Can you forgive me? Can you forgive me? And I started to cry in that moment. And that's what I needed.
I was done. Like, I guess I had got so tired of, you know, you go through that process like, oh, I ain't worried about it. My mama's gonna come back and get me, and she never really got herself together. So eventually you kind of see that that's not gonna happen. So group homes and foster homes were your parents. I was done. I guess I didn't know how to be like responsible. Right. I became homeless. You turn into like this survivor person. Like, I'm gonna do what I have to do to survive. But once you get homeless, it's hard to pull yourself out of that. I remember just carrying like this black trash bag, and like all my clothes would be in this one bag, and I would carry it from house to house because I never knew how long somebody was gonna let me stay. So I really never unpacked my clothes. And that was like my life. And then I got hooked up with the wrong crowd. So I ended up doing like 90 days in jail. I got out, came homeless again, I had to start all over. But I went down to JCC, and I wrote in some classes. And I think I had my clothes in one part of my bag and books in another. I wish it wasn't so I wish foster homes were a little longer. Like, they didn't move you so much, because I know like that affected me, because when you move around a whole lot, it's hard for you to get close to people, and it's hard for you to build that bond. I go inside like the group homes, and I try to mentor and kind of give them like an example of that you can overcome that. You know, it might look like blurry now, but there's light at the end of the tunnel.
My mother was a teenage mom, and I feel that she did not have a very good support system. She also dealt with quite a bit of trauma in her younger years, and so the brain is interesting in how it tries to protect you. So there's like blocks of time she doesn't remember. My father, I actually don't know who that is, and I am working on finding out who that is at this time. If you are lucky enough to have a mentor that is a constant person in your life, then hopefully they're talking some sense into you. Everyone, to a degree, can be victimized or a victim to something, right? But you have to move on, you know, because sometimes people will use their pain as part of their identity and a way to get attention, perhaps. And it's, you know, at some point, you kind of have to take responsibility as an adult.
Something that I found really interesting as I continued my journey through being a foster mom and talking with other foster parents is this dynamic that foster parents feel like they don't matter. Foster parents are oftentimes at the bottom of the barrel in terms of knowing things about a case. Dismissed and discarded is sort of the words I would use. And that's unfortunate, because a foster parent, a quality foster parent, sees that child the most. I wanted you to see the experience of a foster mom. And so that's why I chose this particular mom.
We started foster care back in 2016, early in 2016. We started taking the classes and whatnot. It was total chaos. We had 6 kids at the time. It was kind of, everyone looked at us like we were crazy. Why are you going to take on more kids? And we had a couple challenging kids. I have a child with diabetes. And so there were a lot of challenges we faced. And I think lots of the concern was about taking time away from our biological children. I felt when I started this journey that part of this journey was to wrap around the family as a whole and try to help them. And then the journey kind of changes to, I was just kind of on my own in the fight. The roughest part for me has just been an aching for forgiveness for the biological parents, where I want to have that forgiveness and to allow my girls that connection. After every visit, there would be just trauma reactions from them, triggers, things. They're so young, you don't think they're going to remember the things that happened to them. And I'm sure they don't remember in their minds what happened. But of course, as we've learned about trauma, you learn that their bodies react to those things. So they've had these triggers for years, and we ended up with meltdowns and a PTSD diagnosis and lots of therapies that you would never think you're going to take a 2, 3-year-old to therapy. I tell people often that I wish that I could go back into my bubble. When I entered the system, I had this expectation that we would go and help children. And then my bubble burst, and I entered this world and this reality that I did not know existed. And it was really caused me, even for the first couple of years, to kind of go into a deep depression. And it was consuming, absolutely consuming the things that were going on around me. And while I put that out there as kind of a bad thing, at the same time, I think that awareness has given me a whole new perspective on the world around us and an ability to empathize with other people. I will say that I have never seen something I've been so proud of as see my children, step up for these babies. There was a point that I think our family just needed that to be, my children have so much, and to be able to step outside of themselves and actually see another world. It's not that I want my kids to be completely exposed to all this bad in the world, but they have to know what's out there, and they have to develop that empathy as well. And I've just, to step outside themselves and show so much concern for other kids, even the respite kids we've had come into our home, the things I've seen, when you see your 13-year-old just go pick up a crying baby and walk around, a 13-year-old boy, football player, walk around with a baby that's crying and not even, think anything of it. It's just a very heartwarming experience, and it's such a great thing that it's been for our family.
I've gone to a home and had a mother passed out from meth, unknown if she was going to be able to come out of it or not. We've had babies who have burn marks from crawling through homes that were meth homes or meth labs. I've gone up to a house where they had meth cooking right out on the porch. So I've seen babies with marks from a boot mark from an adult kicking the baby in the head.
How would you describe that experience for the child?
Traumatic. A lot of times, you're leaving your family. You don't know where you're going. It's all you've known. Even those that are abused, it's traumatic for them. You're being ripped away from what you've known. Because there are some workers that really care. They care about the kids on their caseload. They care about the families. They want to do what's right, but we were up against such a broken system. It just didn't make any sense. The whole system in Kentucky really, it broke my heart.
It was always hard to make friends growing up because I never knew where I was going to be at. Well, I first went into foster care in 2005, and I ended up aging out of the system when I turned 18. And over the course of all of those years, I was in 17 different placements, including group homes. Oh yeah, it's definitely broken. Before I was 14, all my homes were relatively bad.
Bad in what way?
So I lived in, when I was between at the ages of 6 and 12, I only lived in one good home. And then all the other homes I was in, they were just abusive to me and my sister. So,
Like physically abusive?
To me, physically.
Is this your twin sister?
Yes. What I was always told was, they said, I don't know, because I was a kid. I was 8 years old when we got separated. And that's when I went to my second group home. She went back to another foster home. And so when they separated us, they pretty much told me that the reason we got separated was because I was holding her back. Residential facilities, which there's a couple bad ones in the state. So I was in a place, and when I was there, they didn't have any cameras on campuses, literally hell on earth. Mm-hmm. It was violent, and it hurt, it was painful. The reason it was so bad is because they knew the kids wouldn't speak out, right? I've seen this millions of times. I never filed a grievance, but there would be other kids that would file a grievance on that staff member. And so the staff would tell us, if you take this kid's side in the investigation, obviously he's going to lose, and then whatever happened to him is going to happen to you. So it's better off just to side with us and to side with them.
So there was retaliation if you said something?
Yes.
I would be extremely remiss if I didn't include a biological parent. We immediately found a biological mother who had her children taken away from her, who was willing to speak with us. And so the particular child that we were talking to her about was taken because her partner, the father, was abusive toward her. I also talked to the foster mom who watched this biological mom's son for 18 months. And in the most unusual of relationships, they now are parenting this child together. And I think you'll find it fascinating and beautiful that because they both love this child, he now has more relationships and more people to care about him. And it really does take a village.
My world went black. It's the worst feeling that I wouldn't even want my enemies to feel. There's a lot of nights I would sit and I would just think about just ending everything, because it was a constant, I would do something and they would tell me to add this to it, and then if I did one thing wrong, they would throw it in my face and then make sure that it'd be 10 times harder to get them back. In the beginning, I felt railroaded. I felt like, since I'm, I don't make a lot of money and I'm a single mother, they knew that they could easily take a child from my home. It's the worst feeling to constantly get told that I'm unsafe and that I'm a liar and that my children shouldn't be with me. Is just, it's the worst. And you can't say nothing. You have to sit there and pretty much take it. And when you finally do say something, you're crazy.
This journey's never going to be perfect. Right. And if you go into this journey and your expectation is that it's going to be pretty all the way through, then you probably shouldn't enter it. The heart of foster care is building up a family so that it is healthy and strong and always in the best interest of the kids. And I think that if you go into it with that mentality, then the choices that you make should be based off of knowing that what's in the best interest of a child is how you choose left or right. I saw a mother who loved her son very much, so we kind of made a decision that we would do visitation together because it would allow the best interest of her child to be in a healthy surrounding. It is a broken system, and so trying to navigate through a broken system and make up for the broken pieces you see in the system puts you into places that you don't want to be. The most difficult thing about being any part of the child welfare system is that somewhere it is forgotten that we're all human beings. It's forgotten that you have a biological mother who is heartbroken beyond what words can even say. You have a foster mom who is straddling the line between wanting a baby to stay safe and a mom to be successful. And the broken pieces of the system somehow turn us into pieces on a board game, because when government is gone and DCBS is gone and everyone walks away, people still need people and people still need supports.
There are a lot of good things happening. There's a lot of work being done behind the scenes by groups, by nonprofits, by the cabinet.
Family preservation is a really important part of this whole what used to be foster care, kids in care. It's really migrated to family preservation and how do we keep families together, how do we help the families that were having trouble really stay together.
So the foster care journey for me and my family has not been easy, but after 4.5 years of my sons being in the state's care, I can finally say that they have been adopted and they are officially official. And so that is the best feeling in the world. But I always want to tell people, this is dichotomous. This is complex. What is a happy ending for us is not a happy ending for birth families. Yes, their rights were terminated, but I'm sure that didn't delete or erase the love they have for their kids. And so while it's a happy ending for us, it's heartache for others. And it's heartache for all of us at some points. This is a messy system. And I hope that by talking about all of these issues and talking about the system, we can start to cultivate solutions. And as many of the flaws that may be pointed out by people, I always do tell people, we have had social workers who have cared so much for my children and for us and who have walked us through the system. It really is the system as a whole that can sometimes bring you down. And I really hope that we can now start to look to the future in helping families before kids are even put into the system, and helping families get things done quicker, and helping find solutions.
I realized that, how did this happen? How did these different paths, and how did the Lord lead me to this, and where I'm sitting here today doing this interview? And I'm sitting here just like, wow, this is a truly amazing story. And I don't like to shine that bright like that, but I like to understand that, like, thank you, Lord. And in order to do that, I have to give back. This is not the story I would have contracted or made up. This is a story that can only be written by a great author. I'm not me without the person above.